You have less time than you think and more time than you fear. That's the paradox, sitting at the heart of the Social Security decision, and it's the same paradox Warren Buffett has spent 94 years quietly mastering. Not with complexity, not with brilliant forecasting or sophisticated calculations, but with something far more valuable, the patient understanding that time itself is the most misunderstood variable in all of finance. This isn't investment advice, and nothing here should be taken as a recommendation for your specific situation. What follows is an exploration of principles, patterns, and the quiet wisdom of a man who has watched money work across nearly a century of American life. Your circumstances are yours alone, and decisions about Social Security deserve consultation with qualified professionals who understand your complete financial picture. But here's what's worth understanding. Warren Buffett didn't become the Oracle of Omaha through complexity. He became legendary through relentless simplicity applied with unwavering patience. And when it comes to Social Security, that same philosophy illuminates something most people miss entirely. The question isn't really about whether you should take Social Security at 62, 67, or 70. The real question is far deeper, far more personal, and far more consequential. The real question is this: do you understand what you're actually choosing? Because by the time you're 60, the margin for error has vanished. The decades of compounding that rescued your earlier mistakes, the years of salary increases that covered your overspending, the time that once felt infinite, all of it has contracted into something much more precious and much more finite. This isn't a rehearsal anymore. This is the performance. Warren Buffett understood something about time that most people spend their entire lives resisting. Time isn't just money. Time is the arena where character either compounds or collapses. And the Social Security decision, whether you realize it or not, is fundamentally a bet on your own character. Let's start where Buffett always starts, with the numbers, but not in the way you might expect. If you claim Social Security at 62, you're accepting a permanent reduction of roughly 25 to 30% compared to waiting until your full retirement age of 67. If you wait until 70, you'll receive approximately 24% more than you would at 67. The math is clear. The break-even calculations are readily available. Financial advisors can show you charts and spreadsheets that attempt to forecast when one choice surpasses another based on life expectancy. But Buffett would tell you something those spreadsheets can't capture. The numbers are the easy part. The hard part is understanding yourself. In 1991, Buffett wrote something in his annual letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders that applies perfectly to this moment in your life. He said, "The business schools reward difficult, complex behavior more than simple behavior, but simple behavior is more effective." He was talking about investing, but he might as well have been talking about retirement planning, because the same delusion operates in both domains. We want to believe that optimal financial decisions require sophisticated analysis, complex strategies, careful timing. We want to believe this because it makes us feel intelligent, in control, masters of our fate. But Buffett spent 70 years proving that the opposite is true. The best financial decisions are almost always the simplest ones, executed with patience and discipline over time. Here's the truth no one talks about. Most people claim Social Security at 62 not because they've run the numbers and determined it's optimal. They claim at 62 because they're afraid. Afraid they won't live long enough to benefit from waiting. Afraid the system will collapse. Afraid that taking the money now is somehow safer than trusting tomorrow. Buffett would recognize that fear. He's seen it destroy more wealth than any market crash ever could. Fear makes you sell at the bottom. Fear makes you hoard cash during inflation. Fear makes you grab guaranteed money today rather than trusting in larger guaranteed money tomorrow. And fear, more than any calculation, is what drives the majority of early Social Security claims. But there's another force at work, equally powerful and equally destructive: impatience. Think about Warren Buffett's entire investment philosophy distilled to its essence. Find quality, buy it at a reasonable price, and wait. That's it. The waiting is where the magic happens. The waiting is where compound interest transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. The waiting is where discipline separates the wealthy from the broke. When Buffett bought Coca-Cola stock in 1988, he wasn't buying it for next month or next year. He was buying it for decades. When he acquired See's Candies in 1972, he wasn't looking for a quick flip. He was looking for a business he could own forever. His entire fortune is built on a single revolutionary insight. If you find something genuinely valuable, time makes it more valuable, not less. Social Security, in its purest form, is exactly that kind of asset. It's a government-guaranteed, inflation-adjusted income stream that lasts for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter if the stock market crashes. It doesn't matter if your rental property sits vacant. It doesn't matter if your bond portfolio gets hammered by rising interest rates. That Social Security check arrives every single month until you die. Now think about what happens when you delay claiming it. Every year you wait between 62 and 70, you're increasing that guaranteed inflation-adjusted lifetime payment. You're not hoping for an increase. You're not gambling on an increase. You're locking in an increase. The government is offering you an 8% annual raise on your benefit for every year you delay between full retirement age and 70. Show me another investment offering that deal. Show me another place where you can get a guaranteed 8% annual increase on an inflation-adjusted income stream that lasts for life. You can't, because it doesn't exist. This is what Buffett means when he talks about looking for value in obvious places. The Social Security delay credits aren't some secret loophole. They're not a sophisticated strategy known only to financial wizards. They're sitting right there in plain sight, offered by the government to anyone willing to exercise patience. But here's where it gets interesting, and here's where Buffett's thinking diverges from the conventional financial planning script. Most financial advisors will run a break-even analysis for you. They'll tell you that if you live past 78 or 80 or 82, depending on the specifics of your situation, waiting to claim makes mathematical sense. If you die before that age, claiming early would have given you more total lifetime benefits. It's logical, it's rational, and it completely misses the point. Buffett doesn't invest based on break-even analysis. He doesn't buy Coca-Cola because he's calculated that the stock will break even at a certain point. He buys Coca-Cola because he believes it's a superior business that will compound value over extremely long periods, and because the act of holding it aligns with his principles and his character. The same framework applies to Social Security. The question isn't when you'll break even. The question is, what kind of retirement income strategy aligns with prudence, security, and peace of mind? Consider this carefully. Social Security isn't just another asset in your portfolio. It's the only truly guaranteed income you'll ever have. Everything else carries risk. Your savings can be depleted. Your investments can decline. Your pension, if you're lucky enough to have one, might not keep pace with inflation. Even your health can betray you, forcing expensive care that erodes your wealth. But Social Security? It's there, every month, for life, adjusted for inflation, protected from market volatility, immune to your own poor decisions. This is why Buffett would almost certainly tell you to think about Social Security not as money you're leaving on the table by waiting, but as insurance you're buying against your own longevity. And in Buffett's world, insurance against genuine risk is always worth paying for. Let's pause here and talk about something Buffett understands better than almost anyone alive: the psychology of decision-making under uncertainty. In 2008, when the financial world was collapsing and panic was everywhere, Buffett wrote an op-ed for the New York Times titled, "Buy American, I Am." The stock market was in free fall. Banks were failing. The entire economic system seemed on the verge of collapse. And Buffett's advice was simple: stay calm, think long-term, and recognize that the best opportunities come when others are fearful. He wasn't being contrarian for the sake of it. He was demonstrating something deeper: the ability to separate emotion from analysis, to resist the urgent in favor of the important, to see beyond the immediate crisis to the underlying value. The Social Security decision demands the same discipline. When you're 62 and the benefit is available, the emotional pull to claim it is powerful. The money is real. The future is uncertain. Taking it feels like agency, like control, like wisdom. But Buffett would ask you to examine that impulse more carefully. Is it wisdom, or is it fear dressed up as prudence? Is it control, or is it impatience masquerading as decisiveness? Because here's what most people miss: claiming Social Security at 62 doesn't give you control. It gives you less money for the rest of your life in exchange for having it slightly sooner. That's not control. That's capitulation. Real control comes from having enough resources outside of Social Security that you don't need to claim it at 62. Real control comes from building a financial life robust enough to allow patience. Real control comes from making the decision that's optimal for your entire retirement, not just for this particular year. Now, let's get practical, because Buffett never stays in the abstract for long. There are legitimate reasons to claim Social Security before 70. If you're in poor health with a shortened life expectancy, claiming earlier might make sense. If you're unemployed with no other resources and genuinely need the income to survive, you may have no choice. If you have a spouse with their own benefit and you're optimizing total household lifetime benefits, sometimes an earlier claim by one spouse is strategically smart. But notice what all those situations have in common. They're based on specific circumstances, not on vague anxiety or impatience. They're decisions made from necessity or strategy, not from fear. The vast majority of people claiming at 62 don't fall into those categories. They're claiming because they want the money now. They're claiming because they've been working for 40 years and they're tired. They're claiming because waiting feels like deprivation. They're claiming because everyone else they know is claiming, and in doing so, they're permanently reducing the most valuable asset they have: guaranteed lifetime income. Buffett has said repeatedly throughout his career that the most important quality in investing is temperament, not intellect. You don't need to be brilliant to succeed financially. You need to be patient, disciplined, and capable of delaying gratification. The same is true for Social Security. You don't need sophisticated financial analysis to understand that getting 8% more guaranteed money every year by waiting is a good deal. You don't need a PhD in economics to realize that maximizing your lifetime inflation-adjusted income stream probably makes sense. What you need is the temperament to wait. And here's the uncomfortable truth. By the time you reach 62, your temperament is already formed. You either have the discipline to delay gratification or you don't. You either have the emotional resilience to tolerate uncertainty or you don't. You either have the patience to play the long game or you don't. This isn't a moral judgment, it's an observation, and it's why the Social Security decision reveals so much about character. Watch what happens when someone claims at 62 despite having no financial need to do so. Watch how they justify it. Watch the stories they tell themselves. I'll invest it and come out ahead. The system won't be there when I'm 70. You never know how long you'll live. I've earned it, and I want to enjoy it. Every single one of those justifications is a rationalization for impatience. Every single one is a way to avoid admitting the simple truth. They don't want to wait because waiting is hard. Buffett knows waiting is hard. He's spent 94 years waiting for the right investment, waiting for the market to crash so he could buy, waiting for businesses to compound, waiting through bear markets and recessions and periods when his approach looked foolish. And that waiting has made him one of the wealthiest people in human history. Not because he was smarter than everyone else, not because he had access to secret information, but because he had the temperament to be patient when others were not. There's a story about Buffett that perfectly captures this principle. In 1999, during the height of the dot-com bubble, Buffett was widely mocked for refusing to buy technology stocks. The NASDAQ was soaring. People were becoming overnight millionaires. Buffett's old-fashioned approach to value investing looked hopelessly outdated. He was asked at a Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting why he wasn't participating in the boom. His answer was simple. I don't understand the businesses, and I only invest in what I understand. He waited, and when the bubble burst in 2000 and 2001, when trillions of dollars of wealth evaporated, when those overnight millionaires saw their fortunes disappear, Buffett was still there, still patient, still focused on the long term. The Social Security decision is your personal version of that moment. The pressure to claim at 62 is everywhere. The rationalizations are convincing. The emotional pull is strong. But the question remains, do you have the temperament to wait? Let me show you something most financial advisors won't tell you, because it's not about math, and they're trained to focus on math. The real value of delaying Social Security isn't just the higher monthly payment. The real value is psychological and strategic. It's about building a retirement architecture that protects you from yourself. Here's what happens when you claim at 62. You immediately begin drawing down the most secure income source you'll ever have. Your monthly benefit is permanently reduced. And now, to cover your full retirement expenses, you'll need to either work longer, save more, or draw more heavily from your investment portfolio. Every dollar you pull from your portfolio at 62 or 65 or 67 is a dollar that can't compound for another decade or two. It's a dollar that's not there during the next market crash to buy stocks at bargain prices. It's a dollar that's been converted from potential growth to certain consumption. Meanwhile, every year you delay Social Security, you're essentially buying more guaranteed income. You're increasing the floor of your retirement security. You're building a larger base of resources that don't depend on market returns or your own discipline or your continued good health. This is what Buffett means when he talks about building a margin of safety. In investing, margin of safety means buying assets for less than they're worth, so you have protection if things go wrong. In retirement planning, margin of safety means maximizing your guaranteed income so you have protection when markets crash, when health fails, when the unexpected inevitably happens. Because here's the truth no one talks about. Retirement isn't one long, steady state. It's decades of changing needs, declining health, market volatility, inflation, policy changes, and surprises, both pleasant and devastating. You need resources that can weather all of that. A larger Social Security benefit is the best weatherproofing you can buy. Now consider the alternative scenario. Imagine you have enough savings and other income that you don't need Social Security at 62. You can wait. And while you're waiting, something remarkable happens. Every year, your benefit increases. Your retirement becomes more secure. Every year you delay, you're locking in more guaranteed inflation-adjusted income. Yeah, every year you wait, you're reducing the burden on your portfolio, giving it more time to compound, creating more margin for error. And when you finally do claim at 67 or 70, you're claiming a benefit that's 30 to 75% larger than what you would have received at 62 for the rest of your life. That's not a minor difference. For someone whose full retirement benefit would have been $3,000 per month at 67, waiting until 70 means receiving $3,720 per month instead. That's an extra $720 every single month, guaranteed, inflation-adjusted, for life. Over a 20-year retirement, that's an additional $172,000. Over a 30-year retirement, it's $258,000. And those figures don't even account for the inflation adjustments, which could easily add another 50 to 100% to the total. This is what compound patience looks like. This is what Buffett has been preaching for 7 decades. Simple decisions, made with discipline, compounded over time, create extraordinary outcomes. But there's something even more important happening here, something that transcends the purely financial. When you delay Social Security, you're making a statement about who you are. You're declaring that you're not controlled by fear or impatience. You're demonstrating that you're willing to sacrifice immediate gratification for long-term security. You're proving to yourself that you have the discipline to make difficult choices in service of your future well-being. That might sound abstract or philosophical, but it's not. It's intensely practical. Because the character traits required to delay Social Security are the same character traits required to successfully navigate retirement. Retirement isn't easy. It's not one long vacation. It's a complex, decades-long phase of life that will test your discipline, your patience, your ability to live within constraints, your capacity to find meaning without the structure of work. The people who thrive in retirement are the same people who have the temperament to delay Social Security. They're patient, they're disciplined, they're focused on the long term, they're not impulsive, they don't need immediate gratification. They can tolerate uncertainty without panicking. The people who struggle in retirement are the opposite. They're impatient. They're impulsive. They need immediate gratification. They can't tolerate uncertainty. And they claim Social Security at 62. Survival beats brilliance. That's another Buffett principle, and it applies perfectly here. You don't need to be brilliant to succeed in retirement. You don't need to pick the right stocks or time the market or find the next Amazon. You need to not do dumb things. You need to not spend more than you have. You need to not panic during market crashes. You need to not make emotional decisions driven by fear or greed. And you need to not permanently reduce your most secure income source because you're impatient. Avoid debt. Avoid drama. Avoid dumb risks. That's the retirement formula in 9 words. Claiming Social Security at 62 when you don't financially need to violates all 3. It creates the potential for debt if your other resources run out. It creates drama when you realize you locked in a lower benefit forever. And it's a dumb risk because you're gambling that you won't live long enough for the higher benefit to matter. Let's talk about one more dimension of this decision, one that Buffett has spoken about extensively in recent years: legacy. When Buffett discusses his wealth now, he doesn't talk much about accumulation anymore. He talks about distribution. He talks about giving it away responsibly. He talks about leaving the world better than he found it. He talks about the responsibility that comes with resources. For you, legacy might not mean billions of dollars pledged to charity, but it means something. It means whether you'll be a financial burden on your children in your final years, or whether you'll have enough resources to maintain independence. It means whether you'll leave something behind or whether you'll spend your last days worried about money. It means whether your retirement will be a model of dignity and prudence or a cautionary tale. A larger Social Security benefit contributes directly to legacy. It means you're less likely to deplete your savings in your 80s and 90s. It means you're less likely to need financial help from family. It means you're more likely to have something left to pass on. And it means you're modeling patience and discipline for the next generation. These aren't small considerations. These are the substance of what your life will mean in retrospect. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the argument you've heard 100 times. What if I die before I break even? It's a valid question. It deserves a serious answer. First, the break-even point for most people is somewhere between 78 and 82, depending on the specifics of their situation. If you die before that age, you will have received less total money from Social Security by waiting than you would have by claiming early. But here's what that analysis misses. You're not optimizing for total dollars received. You're optimizing for security and peace of mind across an unknowable lifespan. Think about it this way. If you knew you were going to die at 75, of course you'd claim at 62 and maximize your total benefit. But you don't know that. Nobody knows that. The entire premise of the break-even analysis is that you can predict your lifespan, which you cannot. What you can predict is this: if you live a long time, you'll be grateful you waited. If you die early, you won't be around to regret it. That asymmetry matters. The downside of waiting is that you might miss out on some money you wouldn't have been alive to spend anyway. The downside of claiming early is that you might live 30 more years with a permanently reduced benefit. watching your purchasing power erode, watching your financial security crumble, wishing you'd been more patient. Which risk would Buffett take? He'd take the risk of dying early over the risk of living long with insufficient resources every single time, because the latter is a catastrophe you'll have to live through, while the former is a non-problem. There's also a deeper issue here, one that goes to the heart of Buffett's entire philosophy. You don't plan for the best-case scenario. You plan for the full range of scenarios with particular attention to the worst case. The best-case scenario is that you die relatively young and enjoyed some extra money in your early 60s. The worst-case scenario is that you live into your 90s with a permanently reduced benefit, potentially running out of money, potentially losing independence, potentially becoming a burden. Buffett has always planned for worst cases. It's why Berkshire Hathaway keeps enormous amounts of cash on hand. It's why he avoids leverage. It's why he focuses on businesses with durable competitive advantages. He's not trying to maximize returns under optimal conditions. He's trying to survive and thrive under all conditions. That's the right framework for Social Security. You're not trying to maximize lifetime benefits, assuming perfect knowledge of your lifespan. You're trying to maximize your financial security across an uncertain future. And the way to do that is to maximize the one income source you can't outlive: Social Security. Pay attention to this moment because it reveals something about the nature of financial decisions in later life. When you're 30 or 40 or even 50, you can recover from mistakes. You have time to rebuild savings, to compound returns, to correct course. But when you're 62 and deciding about Social Security, you're making an irrevocable choice. Once you claim, that's it. You can't unclaim. You can't change your mind if you lived to 90 and wish you'd waited. This is what makes the decision so consequential, and it's what makes the discipline to wait so valuable. You're not just choosing a claiming age, you're choosing the trajectory of your entire retirement income stream. You're setting the foundation for decades of financial reality. Buffett has often said that his favorite holding period is forever. He doesn't want to buy and sell. He wants to buy and hold. He wants to find quality and stick with it. Social Security is the ultimate buy and hold decision. You claim it once, and then you hold it for the rest of your life. The question is what quality you're buying. Are you buying a reduced benefit now because you're impatient? Or are you buying a maximized benefit later because you're disciplined? The choice reveals everything about your financial character. There's a deeper pattern here, one that connects Social Security to every other financial decision in retirement. Buffett's success has never been about brilliant individual moves. It's been about consistently making good decisions and avoiding bad ones over extremely long periods of time. He doesn't hit home runs. He gets on base again and again, decade after decade. The same principle applies to retirement. You don't need one brilliant strategy. You need to consistently make reasonably good decisions and avoid catastrophically bad ones. Claiming Social Security at 62 when you don't need to is a catastrophically bad decision dressed up as a reasonable choice. It's catastrophic because it's permanent. It's catastrophic because it reduces your most secure income source. It's catastrophic because it increases your dependence on less reliable resources. And it's catastrophic because it reveals a character flaw, impatience, that will likely manifest in other destructive ways throughout retirement. Waiting until 67 or 70 is simply a good decision. It's not brilliant, It's not sophisticated. It's not clever. It's just obviously smart if you have the resources to do it and the temperament to tolerate the wait. This is what Buffett means when he says investing is simple but not easy. The right choice is usually obvious. The hard part is having the discipline to make it. Let me tell you something about Warren Buffett that most people don't fully appreciate. He's not famous because he made a few spectacular bets that paid off. He's famous because he made thousands of unremarkable decisions, almost all of them disciplined and patient, that compounded into one of the greatest fortunes in human history. He didn't get rich overnight. He got rich over 70 years. Your Social Security decision is part of that same pattern. It's not going to make you rich, but it can make you more secure. It can give you more margin for error. It can protect you from your future self's mistakes. And it can demonstrate to yourself more than anyone that you have the character to make decisions based on wisdom rather than emotion. That's worth something. That's worth a lot, actually. Something shifts here in the final chapter of this exploration because we've been talking about numbers and strategy and principles, but we haven't talked about what all of this actually means. It means peace. That's what financial security in retirement ultimately delivers if you're lucky and disciplined enough to achieve it. Not wealth for its own sake, not luxury, not status, peace. Peace is knowing that no matter what happens to the stock market, you'll have enough to live on. Peace is knowing that even if you live to 95, you won't run out of money. Peace is knowing that you won't be a burden on your children. Peace is knowing that you made the responsible choice even when it was hard. Warren Buffett has peace. He's never seemed anxious about money, despite building one of the largest fortunes on earth. He's never seemed to lose sleep over market volatility or economic uncertainty. He has peace because he's always made decisions based on principle rather than emotion, on the long term rather than the immediate, on discipline rather than impulse. You can have that same peace at least about your Social Security decision. You can know that you maximized your guaranteed income. You can know that you gave yourself the best possible foundation for a long retirement. You can know that you were patient when patience was required. And on the days when you're 87 years old and that larger Social Security check arrives, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember choosing patience over impatience. You'll remember choosing security over immediate gratification, and you'll be grateful. Gratitude is the final emotion here, and it's the one Buffett comes back to again and again in his later writings. Gratitude for the opportunities he had. Gratitude for the country that made his success possible. Gratitude for the compounding that turned modest beginnings into extraordinary outcomes. Your gratitude might come from something simpler, but no less profound. Gratitude that you made the right choice when it mattered, that you had the discipline to wait, that your retirement is secure not because you were lucky, but because you were wise. This is what all of this has been about, not the math, not the break-even analysis, not the optimization strategies, but the simple, timeless truth that patience and discipline, applied consistently over time, create security and peace. Warren Buffett knew that at 25. He knew it at 50. He knows it at 94. And now, you know it too. The question is what you'll do with that knowledge. Will you claim at 62 because everyone else does? Because waiting is hard? Because you're impatient? Or will you wait, not because you're trying to be clever or sophisticated, but because you understand that patience is its own reward. The decision is yours. It's always been yours. But now you understand what you're really choosing. You're choosing what kind of person you want to be in the final chapter of your financial life. You're choosing whether security or immediacy matters more. You're choosing whether you'll be governed by fear and impatience or by wisdom and discipline. And in that choice, in that single decision about when to claim Social Security, you'll discover something about yourself that no spreadsheet can calculate. Whether you have the character to be patient when patience matters most. That's what Warren Buffett would tell you if he were sitting across from you right now. Not what age to claim, not what the break-even calculation shows, but this. The most valuable asset you have in retirement isn't your portfolio balance or your home equity or even your Social Security benefit. It's your character. And your character is revealed in the decisions you make when waiting is hard and immediate gratification is tempting, and no one would blame you for taking the easy path. So take the hard path. Wait. Be patient. Maximize your guaranteed income. Build your margin of safety. Protect your future self from the worst-case scenarios. And create the foundation for decades of financial peace. Not because it's complicated, but because it's simple. Not because it's sophisticated, but because it's wise. Not because Warren Buffett says so, but because somewhere deep inside you've always known it was true. Time is the most valuable thing you can give yourself in retirement. Time for your resources to last, time for your income to compound, time for your decisions to prove their wisdom. Give yourself that gift. Wait, and trust that patience, as it always has in Buffett's world and can in yours, will be rewarded not with brilliance but with something better. Survival, security, and peace. That's the real question about Social Security. Not when to claim, but whether you have the courage to be patient. The answer will define your retirement far more than any calculation ever could.